Oh, June is busting out all over.
All over the meadow and the hill.
So we begin this marvelous, somewhat musical June edition of Artifacts.
Today we welcome to our studio some fine musicians, a writer, a singular suicide commando,
and one of the state's most prestigious potters.
All this and more on Artifacts next.
Stay tuned.
Hello everyone, I'm Janet Zahn with the Office of Film, Video and Recording for the City of Minneapolis.
And I'm Phill Lindsay with the Minneapolis Community Development Agency. And welcome to Artifacts, the show that brings the arts in Minneapolis home to you.
And just in case you're wondering, or couldn't quite remember, June is busting out all over. The line that we brought you there was from the musical Carousel.
And I think Ward Cleaver is going to be looking for June later. We wanted to make sure you knew that fact before Janet welcomed her first guest, who is none other than the famous musician, teacher, humorist, and technical assistance maven at Resources and Counseling for the Arts, Chris Osgood. He's going to tell you all about some great RCA workshops and other opportunities for artists and organizations coming up this summer.
Then Scott Shore and Katy Tessman of the musical group Joe's Elevator join Phill for some good conversation and a taste of their music from their new CD.
Next, we're honored to welcome the esteemed arts advocate and potter, Joan Mondale, to our show. Now, this is a segment I taped a little while ago, and I can guarantee you're going to enjoy her insights into the world of pottery.
And then, finally, Phill is joined by writer, artist, and performer Rick Ponzio and artist Nancy Robinson. They've got a lot of artistic irons in the fire, and you'll hear all about their most current and eclectic projects.
All that plus our fabulous Artifacts giveaway, which is this lovely cloisonne-like Minneapolis pin.
I think it is really cloisonne. This pin really goes with anything, anywhere, as you can see. A lovely addition to any wardrobe. And all you have to do is call the City Cable 34 hotline at 673-2234. Leave your name, address, and phone number on the answering machine. And if you're the 11th caller, the pin is yours.
So there you have it. Janet's first guest, Chris Osgood, will be joining us right after this clip from Family Name, one of the films featured in the Juneteenth Film Festival running June 6th through the 18th at various locations in the Twin Cities. In Family Name, director Mackie Alston unravels the mystery of his heritage by setting out to find the descendants of slaves and slave owners from plantations once owned by his family. Here's the clip.
This is my sister, and this is my baby sister.
Vanessa says she's going to her family reunion at the end of the week, but I like to come. She lives 40 miles away near Chatham County, where a branch of my family moved around 1800.
Hey!
How you doing?
How are you doing?
So this is incredible. This is pretty great. Can we eat too?
Yeah.
It's
Eat
nice to
some of
meet-
this soul food. Woo! I live to eat.
I feel just a little bit conspicuous. A white man walking around with a film crew saying, "Hi, I'm an Alston too."
I'm Mackie.
Alston. This is Elliot, Frank, Brooke, Selena, Nick, and there are two other of us. Do you all know white Alstons around here?
No, I really don't.
Are there a lot of Alstons around here? Where'd they all come from?
They were raised here.
For more information on the Juneteenth Film Festival, call 375-7622. Chris Osgood is here with me today. Chris is what's your official title? We called you a maven.
Janet, my official title
Yes.
is Director of Artist Services.
Director of Artist
At
Services.
Resources and Counseling for the Arts.
In St. Paul.
In St. Paul, in Lower Town. We've been in our new location since April of last year, and that's at the corner of 4th and Broadway, right by the Farmers Market down there. We're in the Northern Warehouse right above Copernicus Coffee Gallery.
You know, I want to talk a lot about research and counseling for the arts because that's what
That's
you're here.
great, 'cause
But
that's why I came.
I know, but I do want to ask about the Suicide Commandos.
Okay.
Yeah, are you in training? Got any gigs?
We are in training. We've got some gigs coming up, and all I'll say about it right now is that I hope that we can be a part of a flood relief effort, and working on that.
Good.
And that's our little plan for the summer.
Cool.
We'll see.
That sounds fun.
Steve has been in North Carolina recording his new solo record, and also we are a part of a new Squealer compilation that's out on Mohawk, and we happen to be the first cut on there.
Cool.
It's very easy to check out, and I'm still imploring people to don't walk, but run to your local record store and get a copy of the Commandos re-release on Mercury.
Yeah, and it's called?
make a record.
Make a record. Cool. Well, I just really wanted, I know because people will want to know that stuff, so we have to get through that first. Anyway, tell me about resources and counseling for the arts, for people who don't know what that is and who you serve.
Here we serve 3 constituencies at RCA. My deal is, obviously, as Director of Artist Services, I work with individual artists, or the term that we use is self-employed creative people. Okay. And we try and provide services ranging from the workshops that I'll talk about, the publications that we have, all the way through to attorney referrals, accountant referrals, and individual consultations. We do a lot of work on the telephone. We were talking about this before, but the voicemail has a tendency to fill up every day with people calling in with questions like, how do I register copyright on my songs? Or tell me about the IFP North Pitch Day that's coming up. I want to know more about that. All kinds of questions like that related to the artistic infrastructure of our town. Now that's Artist Services.
Right.
The woman that I work for and with, Joan Wells, the executive director, her purview is she does the same thing for arts organizations that I do for individuals. And those are services for small to mid-sized cultural organizations. The woman that works with me, Ann Follett, in Artist Services, also manages something called the Dayton Hudson Artist Loan Fund. And we make loans at amounts of $1,000 to $5,000 for artists to capitalize their businesses. Buy a loom or a computer or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
That's been very effective. We've been doing that now for 4+ years. We've made 55 loans, and
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And again, it's the Dayton Hudson Artist Loan Fund. That's administered by Ann Follett in our office. So we serve self-employed creative people, small to mid-sized cultural organizations, and our third constituency is people that are looking for jobs in the arts. And we've got a job book that Tammy Beckley updates every week, and usually there are between 60 and 100 job listings in and around the arts community and the creative community, and we hope that people come and visit us at RCA and come in, and again, we're Suite 270 at 308 Prince Street in Lower Town in St. Paul, and the job listings also exist at the Downtown Public Library here in Minneapolis in the art and music section.
60 to 100 jobs a week. That surprises me that there's that's so much opportunity.
That's a little optimistic.
Yeah.
It's really like 60 to 80.
But still, that's a lot.
Yep, that's a lot. It's a lot going on, and it is, that's a very regularly used service of ours. People come in, and by the way, RCA is open from 9 to 5 every day, and you can come in and plunk yourself down, take a look at the job listings. It's free. All you need to do is we've got the job listings in a loose leaf binder, and if you see something you're interested in, you take it out of the binder, photocopy it. You have to pay us a dime. But then you can walk away with all the information. You don't have to transcribe it or anything like that. Very handy.
What kind of general information do you impart to people who are looking for work in the arts? Is there, I mean, it's
Be nice.
Be
That's
nice
the
is
first
good.
thing. That's the first thing that we say.
yeah.
And well-groomed, grooming, no. That what we do talk about is, and this is related actually to this publication. This would be a good moment for me to hold this up. This is a publication that we have called Artwork, and it's inclusive of different types of resume preparation, presentations, a cover letter format. We talk about understanding the kind of job that it is that you're going after, and we talk about professional presentation and what it is to put your resume together, your cover letter, and try and make a presentation of yourself when you're not there so that you can get an interview.
Right.
And that's what we say is that a resume never got anybody a job, but a resume gets you an interview, and then you have a chance to get the job.
I'm kind of curious about just this whole idea of resources and counseling for the arts in terms of, you know, job and career related services and that kind of thing. I mean, did a place like this exist before, or what was the initial need for something like this? I mean, there's not resources and counseling per se for accountants or, you know what I mean? What's
the history is hazy, and it seems to have been started by elves, or what we refer to as the little people. No, not really.
I believe it.
What happened was that resources and counseling was a service of United Arts, or the United Arts Fund, in the late 70s. And RCA, actually Resources and Counseling, as it was called then, was started in 1978 as a service of United Arts, or the United Arts Fund, who was a collector of monies for organizations. And I'm speculating, we could ask Barbara Davis or or other people about this. I'm speculating that it started out with services for organizations, and then they said, hey, we've got all of these individuals out there, let's do the same thing for them. We were affiliated with United Arts until 1991, and then we spun off and became RCA, Resources and Counseling for the Arts. And as such, as this entity, we're unique, as far as we know, in the world for serving self-employed creative people. And we're very beholden to our funders, people like Dayton Hudson Foundation, the Jerome Foundation, St. Paul Companies, McKnight, I could go on and on, corporate citizens around here, 3M, et cetera, that help us do our thing. And there's nothing like it anywhere else in the country.
Well, it seems that, I mean, you have the artists who are singular people out there doing their work and don't
Very
have...
singular.
Yeah, and they just don't have that kind of a network opportunity or whatever that it is you provide. And it surprises me that there aren't more places like yours, but we're very lucky then to have you here.
I should think so.
Yeah.
Hey, let me hold up
Yes.
this. What I can do next, speaking
Okay.
of that, is RCA, because of the nature of what we do and because of the fact that we serve more than one artistic discipline, we do this booklet, which is called the Handbook for Minnesota Artists. And it's inclusive of all of the different arts organizations in town that are discipline specific, like the Playwrights Center or Independent Feature Project North or the Loft for Writers, et cetera, the Minnesota Association of Songwriters, et cetera. And they are listed in this booklet, which is, I have to say, a handsome booklet that's about 100 pages long of information. And I want to thank the Minneapolis Office of Film, Video, and Recording for contributing to the production of this book. This is the only booklet that RCA needs to sell. It costs $2. And if you want to have one, you can write to us or give us a call and we'll send you one. They're $3.50 postpaid, or you can come down and pick one up. And we based it on the Scout Manual, and we wanted it to be a handy overview of all of the opportunities for assistance in professional development here for self-employed creative people, and lo and behold, this is what we came up with. And it works.
Yep.
It's a very useful booklet to get in touch with all these organizations, and we're in the process of updating it and putting email addresses and websites in there for the next version, which I hope will be ready to be released in the fall.
Tell me what else you got.
Let me wave around a couple
Yep.
of other things. This is something that it's called the Basic Guide to Grants for Minnesota Artists, and we do this publication and the next one I'm going to hold up in conjunction with the Minnesota State Arts Board. They are a co-publisher for these. Basic Guide to Grants for Minnesota Artists, where to get funding for projects, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the brand new one that we have. We want to thank Reliastar for helping us print this publication. This is the new Basic Guide to Gallery and Exhibition Spaces. And this is critical for, obviously, visual artists, people that are trying to find venues for their work, places to exhibit their work. And it's also very useful for people that want to go see work. You know, how do I find the galleries? And the galleries are all listed in here, and what do they specialize in, et cetera, et cetera. And this is hot off the press.
Yeah.
Both of these publications are free. And you can get them by writing us or mailing us or emailing us. And by the way, my email address is chris@rc4arts.org. And I'd be happy to send these to you for free.
Okay. And you got some workshops too.
Got some
We'll
workshops.
Make sure we get
I'm
all
gonna-
this stuff in.
Thank you very much. I'm
Yep.
going to wave this around. This is our summer workshop flyer. We don't do summer workshops every year.
Oh, you don't?
But this year we sensed a need. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. Professional services, we looked around us and we found the area wanting. And so for artist services, I'm going to be doing some workshops. Actually, I'll be doing career planning and a guide to grants for Minnesota artists. These happen, well, depending on when you're watching this show, these happen the second week of June, starting the 10th of June and through that weekend.
Okay.
We're going to be conducting most of them at RCA, and we'll be doing record keeping and financial management for artists. And we've got the On Track Business Group. We talk about our loans for artists. This is the Dayton Hudson Artist Loan Fund. And this week of summer workshops will be culminating on Saturday, the 14th of June, in an all-day workshop at Intermedia Arts on marketing and professional presentation for individual artists.
It's just an amazing amount of information that you guys provide. A wonderful service.
I don't care what anybody says.
It is true.
I
true.
think it's very useful, and
I do too.
The thing that and here's my pitch to individual artists is most of the info that you want to get, you can get your questions answered by coming in and talking to me or to Ann Follett. But there's something great about sitting in a room with other self-employed creative people and being able to find out how other people creatively come up with solutions to marketing problems or professional development. And I will say this, and here's your clue for this workshop series, is that money is the least, or is the thing that you need the least to advance your career. It's the most expendable part of the whole equation. There are many ways around every obstacle, and that's what we show people how to do.
How to do. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for everybody. I want to give your phone number again.
Thanks.
You may run into some voicemail, but eventually people will answer your questions.
Yeah, and I will apologize for that and just say that we are heavily subscribed, which is great.
It is.
And now with email, we're heavily subscribed from around the world.
Yeah.
I've been working with some people in Norway and some people in Spain. It is very exciting and it's fun, but it becomes consuming. So
here's another opportunity to get your phone number out there. And great work, Chris. I appreciate all you're doing. 292-4381, Resources and Counseling for the Arts.
Janet, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Phill will be right back with his guests Scott Shore and Katy Tessman of Joe's Elevator after this visual reminder of the second annual Lindale Fish Fry, which takes place at 33rd and Garfield Avenue South in Minneapolis on Saturday, June 14th. And be sure to stay with us for Phil's interview with Joan Mondale, too, right here on Artifacts.
Now, the clip you just saw was of a mural at 33rd and Garfield, home of the second annual Lindale Fish Fry. And in case you just joined us, you're watching Artifacts, the show that brings the arts in Minneapolis home to you. I'm Phill Lindsay, and with me today, a couple guests I'm glad to have on the show. Scott Shore, thanks for being on the show. Good to have you here. And Katy Tessman.
Hi.
And these are two of the songwriters and performers with Joe's Elevator. Joe's Elevator is, in shorthand, a musical group, but I think on your press release, it's got the longest descriptor I've ever seen. It is a folk, jazz, or tell me what Joe's Elevator is. It had just about everything.
Very eclectic folk rock band with influences from folk and blues, country, pop, rock.
It sounds great. That's real nice. How long has Joe's Elevator been in existence?
3.5 years.
3.5. Now you had to do a little eye shifting there. Is it actually 3.5 years? It wouldn't be like 3 or 7 months.
Some different incarnations.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So.
Now you guys met at college.
Right.
But is that exactly when and where Joe's Elevator started, or you had to come back here to the Twin Cities?
We had to come back. I think there's some legal things, but we had to come back to the city.
Had to come back to where we grew up.
Few problems up there in the Red River, huh?
Yeah.
You got to watch out for it up there.
Great. Well, now, what are your individual backgrounds? Katy, let's start with you. Voice and singing, obviously.
Yep, I went to Robbinsdale Cooper High School, where I studied from Luana Blake Mitchell, and she taught me to sing classical soprano songs.
Now, when you say classical, what is that as distinct from the kind of thing you're doing with Joe's Elevator?
Well, when you sing in a rock band, you're not really using a whole lot of the things that you should be using when you're singing. When you're singing more classical, you use a lot of things from your training, your head voice, where you place your voice. And with that background, I've been able to apply that to Joe's Elevator, singing pop folk songs.
Okay, so I'm guessing this. Does that mean you're using more of the cavities and and your body than the typical kind of Janis Joplin growling into the microphone kind of thing?
Right.
Great. Okay. And your background, Scott?
Musically?
Yeah, or whatever. I don't know.
Actually, the musical background kind of came more from Katy than anything else. I played the guitar for a little while, but as far as the singing thing goes, I get voice lessons sort of from Katy.
Well, that's handy. No,
Not
that's really
good.
lessons
per se, but
a couple of hints like
it's the hints.
Hit this note. Let's harmonize here. That kind of
Yeah.
Right now,
got a good ear.
there are other people in the group, though.
Oh yeah.
And I think we should mention them.
Yeah.
What does everybody play?
Tom Lear is on bass and vocals, and Gail Walinga is on drums and percussion. I play guitar and mandolin as well, sing.
And I play acoustic electric guitar and I sing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were nice enough to bring your debut CD. Why don't you hold that up and we'll take a quick peek at it. This lovely, and it is called, well, it's Joe's Elevator is the group. Up and Down is the name of the album. And what would we hear if we listened to this? Songs by whom?
Both of us.
Really? Oh, so you two are the...
Yeah.
Yep.
We are
The
the main
songwriters.
lyricists. We work independently and we bring things to the band. We also work collaboratively on lyrics. And then the band, all four of us, put music to the lyrics.
How do you do that? As someone who's never done that in his life, I mean, I've put stage shows together, and I kind of know the mess and the wonder that goes on backstage to make that happen. Somebody has a set of lyrics in mind, and you kind of hammer that out a little bit, and then what's the next thing that happens with the musician? Or
normally there's the guitar, for me anyway. Normally I kind of work out the guitar part first, the guitar and the vocals. I'll have something that I've written out. I'll have maybe a basic vocal line, and I'll have a guitar part and the words, and I'll come to the band and say, here's this thing. Let's do something with it.
Okay.
And Katy, I think, is fairly similar, although she normally has a much stronger vocal line sort of set.
Okay.
Since I'm the lead vocalist,
Right.
you write the melodic line first.
And then, okay, so you do that first, and then what's the give and take, and maybe it's different from with each group, what's the give and take with the other musicians, and are they basically coming in behind you to do what you're saying, no, I had this in mind, or are they contributing and saying, she's smiling because there's probably a lot of blood on the tracks when they're doing this. But I mean, how is the give and take going on there when you're actually coming up with the final cut? I mean, are they saying, no, Katy, this actually would sound better if we did this? And is that trial and error or what?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of trial and error. Tom puts in his bass line, and we kind of rework it and rework it. Okay. It's all based on his talents and his ear for that instrument, as well as Gail playing her drums. Sometimes she might say, I can't really find anything. And then we'll say, well, what about if you hit that one drum there or whatever?
Okay. Yeah, we all have basic knowledge of all the instruments that we're dealing with. So a lot of times we'll have something in our head that we want to hear.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of play off of something, but normally everybody has their own part, and it kind of it changes with that person.
Now, for you two as songwriters, do the words really come first, or is there a melody that's going through and you say, oh, that resonates with something I was thinking just last week?
Well, for me, it all comes together. The basic chord progressions on the guitar, the lyrics, and then the melodic line. All three of those things come all at the same time for me.
Wow. See, to me, that's just half a step from genius. I could not do that. That's very impressive. Yeah.
That's the way it comes easiest for me.
Yeah, wow.
I always do the words first.
Yeah. See, I would do that as well. I'd be a thesaurus and a dictionary, and I'd be saying...
I don't do that at all.
No. Well, you're creative, probably, and I'm looking up for rhymes with orange.
Just let it flow out, and half the stuff that I write never makes it to music.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, I do some writing too, and a lot of it's just not fit for human consumption, but those pearls that do last. Right. What kind of things do you write about?
We just had this discussion.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I basically write about my experiences and how I might feel about a certain experience, whether it's a relationship that's gone bad or my relationship with my grandmother that's strong, and I write a song as a gift to her. So it's about me and my life with the people that I live with.
Well, sure. They always say, write about what you know.
Yeah.
So there you go. Same with you?
Sort of.
I assume you have a different grandmother. So.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, small world,
Sure. No, the way I write tends to be more abstract. I tend to just kind of let things flow. A lot of times I'll write something and not really know what it means maybe right away until later. We talked about this earlier, and it's a bit of a cheesy metaphor, but I tend to write more like an abstract painting, sort of. It's like this beautiful backdrop.
You like that?
I tend to write more like that, metaphorically buried with a bunch of stuff in it. So you're not necessarily sure what it all means, but it means something.
That sounds great. And we're going to, as we go out of this segment, we're going to hear a brief little cut, and then at the end of the show, we're going to hear, I believe, most, if not all, of a cut from your CD here. So people get a shot at just hearing that.
Right.
Before I forget, you've got a show, a performance coming up in the early part of June. Tell us about that.
June 7th, we're at the Loring Bar. We're opening for the Chicago female duo called Twigs. They're supposedly the new Indigo Girls. I've heard wonderful things about them.
So Indigo Girls kind of faded?
No, the Indigo Girls have gone, and now they are the Indigo Girls.
Oh, okay, they're performing with Bacharach, I think, or something like that.
And now there's
so this is like the new hot act, and you guys are fronting for them? Well, that's pretty. How did that happen? Somebody called you up and say, "Hey, we got the Twigs," and
Yep, John Devine from the Loring knows our work there, and knows that we've got the acoustic folk influence in our music like Twigs, and thought it'd be a good match.
Okay, so as a producer, he knew that had worked together, and let's get you two guys on there. Well, that's great. We've got just a couple moments left, and I got a couple more questions I want to squeeze in here. Who comes to hear you guys, and who do you hope comes to hear Joe's Elevator?
That's interesting because we really started as a coffee shop kind of duo almost, really, until the other members kind of came along. So our crowd has been changing because we do a lot of the bars and Fine Line and Loring and different crowds now. So who we want to come hear us is everybody. You know, the more people, the better.
Yeah.
But I think it tends to be a younger crowd.
We've got a very supportive group of friends.
Oh, that's
that
good. Well,
come
yeah,
out.
that's important. Sure.
Very
Sure.
loyal, very supportive.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of a more generic question. You're trying to make a go of it with your music and your songwriting. How hard is that? Where do you think you'll be in 5 years? I mean, do you think you'll be busting suds at a...
Well, recording the CD was like one of our major goals.
There you go.
And finally we did it.
Yeah.
And it took a while because we had to find the right drummer. And once we found Gail, Tom and Scott and I were all pretty set with our music and feeling good about it.
Okay.
And we all have day jobs.
Yeah.
So that pays the bills, and we're able to buy more instruments and experience those kinds of things.
Kind of a day at a time, in other words.
Yeah,
And I'm a graphic designer, and I, with another artist, designed this disc, and that's...
I have to compliment you. This
Yeah.
is a nice looking
Thanks.
disc here, yeah.
Yes. So that was, it took me 3 years before I could design a CD cover for someone, and I had to be in the band. But, that's what I do. So,
Sure.
you ask in 5 years, it'd be great if we're playing, a lot and recording other CDs and doing that, and I think we all want to keep the music thing going. But,
Very quickly, we've got to go. There's a phone number people can call for more
Yes.
info. And what is that? Can you rattle that off?
806-9161.
the hotline.
And if somebody wanted to phone or get in touch by post office box, I think you've got a number, so if they wanted to actually get this sent to them in the mail.
80681, Minneapolis 55408.
Great. And at selected music stores, I bet.
Yep, Cheapo and Electric Fetus.
Great.
Let it be.
All right.
Go out and buy it. It's
Well,
really
congratulations. Thanks, Katy.
great. Thank you.
Scott, good
Thanks
to
a
have you
lot.
here. And now we'll hear just a couple cuts or a couple of moments from one of the tunes on Up and Down. And remember, we're doing an Artifacts giveaway. You can be the owner of a beautiful cloisonne style Minneapolis pin by being the 11th caller to the City Cable 34 hotline. That number is 673-2234. Leave your name, address, and phone number on that answering machine, and this pin, yes, this pin could be yours. Well, my next guest I'm very pleased to have on Artifacts. She's a person who has represented both our state at the national level and our country abroad. And I'm speaking really of only one person, and that is Joan Mondale. Thank you for being on the show. And most importantly to viewers of Artifacts, she has been a passionate supporter and advocate for the arts. In fact, to many of us, you're known as Joan of Art. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that moniker? I mean, it's said with affection, but does that bother you, or do you like it?
Oh, no. It was said in derision in Washington when Fritz was vice president. And I had always said I was going to support the arts. And so my job for those 4 years was to do exactly that. And so someone from the newspaper said Joan of Art, and it just sort of stuck.
Joan, I didn't realize it was a derisive term. Oh, well, it fits perfectly. I've seen you at so many events where you've supported public art, arts education, and of course Americans for the Arts here in the Twin Cities this month of June. So thanks for all your good work over the years.
No, not at all.
What a lot of people may not be aware of, although I think folks that are involved in the arts probably know, that you have a passion for a particular art form, and that is pottery.
Yes.
And let's just jump right into it. You were kind enough to bring some examples of both your work and a piece or two that you brought back from Japan.
I started working in clay because I feel that it's a very tangible and real thing to do. In my life and in many people's lives, everything sort of is ephemeral. I mean, you give a speech and what do you have to show for it? Nothing. Maybe your picture in the paper, but that gets yellow with age. And I was in a position where I had to give many gifts because we went so many different places, and then of course that came in quite handy when we went to Japan, and they give gifts all the time. So I really wanted to do something with my hands, and I had taken classes in oil painting in high school, and I had made jewelry in high school too, and I really hadn't worked in clay until the year before I met Fritz. And of course after I met him, everything was on hold because of our public life, and I took care of the children and so on. But when our youngest son went off to high school and didn't come home for lunch every day because our children went to the public schools in Washington, I was free all day. And a friend of mine had several wheels in her basement, and she said over lunch, Joan, why don't you just join our class? So I did in a very relaxed and haphazard way, and I've been working ever since.
Well, that's a wonderful story. Now, did you grow up in a family that loved the arts and got you involved? Or?
Well, yes. My father always listened to the opera when he raked leaves on Saturday afternoons, and my parents, I grew up in Philadelphia, had tickets to the Philadelphia Orchestra every Monday night. And my father took us to museums. We saw the Sumerian gold and the Assyrian bas-reliefs and the mummies at the University Museum on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania in
Right, of course Philadelphia's rich in its own heritage and tradition.
Yes.
So that's
and I think
great.
once as a child you get started, that it's something you really want to do for the rest of your life, however you can fit it into your,
That's right.
to your
With
life.
those life interruptions that sometimes come in. So good for you, though, that you didn't lose the thread and you said, yes, I'm going to take up your friend's offer and do it. Well, if you would, show us and share with us some of your own work here and tell us, among other things, what is it to the untrained eye we should be looking for in appreciating some of this kind of work?
Well, let's see. Let's start with a cup, because that's the easiest thing to buy. I mean, they're very inexpensive, and this is sort of your standard coffee cup. And it has to have a firm base. It has to have a handle that you can get at least 2 fingers in so that it's comfortable.
Okay, I like the practicality here. This is good.
Yes, and the rim should be very strong, because that's what cracks. You know, when you put it in the dishwasher and wash it.
Sure.
In use. So the potter has to make a very firm rim. And then the bottom should be, well, some potters just cut them off the wheel, but I always made a foot. And then in the foot is my logo, JM.
All right.
So that you know who made this wonderful pot.
Well, it is wonderful. I
Well,
like it.
and the decoration should really fit the pot itself. There shouldn't be too much, there shouldn't be too little. It has to be just right. I always like to put something at the end of the
Oh, good for you.
cup,
Sure.
just
Sure.
for fun. Then, of course, a bowl is rather basic. This is larger than a cereal bowl, and it's sort of a medium-sized serving bowl. But you have to look at the shape, too, how it comes down. This foot is a little thin. It should be, I think, a little stronger. This is an early pot. And you can see how important the rim is, how prominent it is.
Again,
so
as
it
with the
hasn't
cup.
cracked. Right.
Interesting.
And this is chun glaze with a little bit of copper underneath. Copper turns red in a reduction firing.
I'm hoping that the camera can pick up, because there's some very subtle and beautiful color in here.
And that all happens in the kiln. You really don't have control over the decoration. The kiln does its work.
Okay, but you sort of set that in motion. I mean, you have a
Yeah.
sense if I'm using this, it'll
You hope.
tend. Yeah.
It always is a little bit of a surprise
I
when
see.
you unload the kiln.
Right.
And then, of course, this is one of the favorite things I've made, and I haven't given it away. It's a little tiny creamer. But again, the handle has to be big enough so that you can hold it. The shape has to be satisfying. And the rim has to be strong, and then you'll have to be able to pour so that it doesn't drip. That's the big secret.
Exactly, exactly. And that's a very sweet piece. Now, do you test something
Yeah.
like that with the pourability? I mean,
Yeah.
you make a model of it and make sure that this is the right dimension?
Oh, not really. I
No?
just hope.
You have a little faith in the...
Yeah, here's a larger one,
Okay.
which is not, I don't think as successful as the smaller one, because the proportions aren't quite right, but it'll do. And then the most difficult to me to make is a plate. Usually you use between 3 and 5 pounds of clay. You have to center it, and then you smooth it out so it's in a big round oval. And the difficulty with a plate is you have to move the clay from the center of the wheel out to the rim. And you have to do it in a continuous motion. I always seem to end up with, I don't know, ridges or lines or an interrupted line. You're really
I
not
see,
supposed to
okay.
have that. So you're supposed to look for that. Also, this has quite a thick rim. So again, it won't crack or break. And then the foot, when you trim the foot, it has to be large. This is about right, but not exactly. Now, Warren McKenzie usually glazes the inside, which makes it look very nice. He brings the glaze down to here and then glazes the inside.
On both
which
sides of the foot there.
finishes it off very nicely. This glaze is Tomoku, and it's a Japanese glaze that's very popular in the United States. Everybody knows about Tomoku.
And then you brought some Japanese work.
Yes. In Japan, it's the country of clay. Everybody has their favorite potter, their favorite kiln, their favorite design. And this was given to us, and Japanese pots are almost always given in these wonderful boxes, kiriwood boxes, and you never throw them away because the box to the Japanese is the identification that this is really made by a particular potter, because this, I assume, says the potter's name, although I can't read Japanese, but there is his red seal.
That could say almost anything as far as I'm concerned. That's wonderful. So essentially the box, the presentation, is part of the provenance of the piece or the work.
And it's made of special wood, kiri wood, which is lightweight and fireproof. So that,
interesting.
Well, you know, fires are really frightening even in today's Japan. You remember the Kobe earthquake and the damage that was caused by the gas not being turned off and started many fires. So that's something important to remember. But this was given to Fritz and me, and these are called yunomis. They are handle-less teacups. And one is larger than the other, so this, of course, is for the man and this is for the wife. And they're made by Shoji Hamada's favorite pupil, a man named Shimoka. And he lives in Mashiko, which is the pottery town that most Americans know about. And he has a very sort of international point of view. He has shows in New York, and he often is welcoming American potters. And several Minnesota potters have worked with him, Randy Anderson and so on. Have worked with him as an apprentice. He's very internationally minded. And his father was a rope maker. So he uses this decoration when the yunomi is leather hard. He'll take a rope and roll it down the side of the pot. Then he'll cover it with white slip so the indentations are filled. Then he'll take a knife and very gently scrape away the excess white slip so you can see the decoration of the rope. It's quite unique.
Yes, it's the first thing I noticed when you pulled it out of the box.
It's lovely.
It is.
And then he will probably put this on the wheel head, spin it around, and make this wonderful line of red iron oxide with these little decorations on them. And again, the Japanese usually glaze the inside of the foot. They have a very distinctive sort of foot, which is sort of
there's a bit of a bevel or something there. Yeah.
It's very handsome.
There's a very deft touch to everything you've pointed out on this piece here.
And again, the rim is very strong and very pronounced. And he has a little bit of the white slip inside the yunomi as well.
A little wave or something that comes down in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's really quite lovely. Thank you for sharing that. That's
not
wonderful.
at all.
You must have almost been in seventh heaven as a potter in Japan.
I was very, very happy. And many a conversation I had with a bureaucrat or a elected public official or a man that I really didn't have very much to talk with about, we'd always talk about clay.
Yes.
And so it was easy for me to speak to a stranger.
And you said before we sat down to talk here that you were busy all over and regularly throughout Japan talking with them about arts things.
Yeah.
What was that like? What were some of the big issues you dealt with over there?
Well, the Japanese were just beginning to discover art in public places. And while I was there were 3 projects that were completed. So I was in Japan at just the right time because I wanted to talk to them. I couldn't talk to them about clay because they're masters, experts. And I wanted to talk to them about something we had, something that we're very comfortable with, that we worked out all the kinks, and that was art in public places that had to be sponsored by the group that was building the buildings. And fortunately, they have an organization called Housing and Urban Development Corporation, which is very similar to our HUD. And they have money from the central government, but they have complete authority over the spending of the money in the building. And they are renovating, or they're tearing everything down and starting from scratch, several areas in Tokyo. And they invited me to come to the dedication of the works of art. And I really enjoyed that a whole lot. So I showed a video of art in public places in the Boston subway. And then I showed a video of the 3 projects that I talked about, so that and it was in Japanese, so the Japanese could understand their language very easily. And then when I give speeches like that in the United States, they gave me a second copy with English dub.
For our sake, that's
right.
Great. That's great.
So I felt it was a very exciting moment, and I tried very hard to speak to architects, their groups,
good audience,
and speak to contractors, and speak to public officials who were on committees that had the responsibility for building.
So another ambassadorial post for you. Good for you.
Well, it made me very happy to have a job.
Yeah, good for you. Joan, we have another moment or two left, and I wanted to take the opportunity to ask you about the change that seems to be going on nationally in terms of the arts. National Endowment's been under attack for a number of years. In a few words, in your own words, what do you have to say to those folks who say there should be no public role in supporting the arts?
Oh, well, they're wrong.
In a word.
Yes, it's simple.
Sure.
Artists have always looked to their governments for support. I mean, the Egyptian artists were hired by the pharaoh to make the pyramids and the sphinxes. And the artists in the Middle Ages were hired by the church to make the stained glass windows and stone and carved stone carvings for the cathedrals. And then, of course, in the Renaissance, that was high patronage, not only of the church, but also the wealthy nobles. And ever since then, this has been a part of the formula that has made the arts a strong and vibrant community, is the joining together of national governments, state governments, local governments, and the private sector, individuals as well as corporations and foundations. And that was the magic that Nancy Hanks, when she was working very hard for the endowment in the 60s, she created the Challenge Grant. So, for example, if Walker Art Center needed money for, I don't know, an exhibition or something, if they got a challenge grant, it was kind of the good housekeeping stamp of approval. And they could go to corporations and say, we got the money from the endowment, now will you give us a match? And usually it was matched 3-to-1. So it saved businesses, it saved corporations and state governments, and local governments and individual, all the work of doing the research about whether this was a worthy organization, whether they ran a tight ship, whether they were really doing what they say they were going to do, and the endowment did all of that. Right. So it was a service to the larger community, and that's what worked so beautifully.
Joan, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Appreciate having you on the show.
Not at all.
All right. And we'll be back right after this. Well, it was a real pleasure to interview and learn a little bit about pottery with Joan Mondale. That was a real pleasure. Now, my next guests actually are old friends of mine, and they're amongst the most creative, multi-talented people I know. I want to welcome Rick Ponzio.
Good to see you, Phil.
Good to have you here. Nancy Robinson, artist extraordinaire. You two, we've got a lot to talk about. You're nice enough to bring a lot of art, and we're going to see all of this stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about what it is you two do. Let's start with Nancy. To call you a visual artist is sort of limiting because you do various disciplines within the art world. What do you do?
Well, my main focus is painting. I do some sculpture and other sorts of things, but I'm primarily a painter.
Okay, primarily, so by painting two-dimensional, flat ground, that sort of thing?
Two-dimensionally, but I bring in the third dimension a lot. I think of my sculpture sometimes as paintings that have just moved into the third dimension.
Okay, kind of leaked into that third dimension.
Yes, was very much what it did.
Which actually, there's an example right here, now that I think of it. Could you just name this for us, and maybe as the camera beams in here, because there's a three-dimensionality to this.
Yes, this piece is called The Rebel, and the tongue is actually sticking out of his mouth, even though he's a flat painting, and then the little neckties are hanging from mat pins on a mat that I've made that's somewhat three-dimensional. And so I like to do this in my work sometimes. Not all of my work is three-dimensional. We're moving into the third dimension. But this is an example of one that is.
Coming off the wall a little bit there, literally.
Just to disorient the viewer.
The Rebel, what's the story behind that?
Well, my work is an attempt, well, what I do is I take an experience I've had, or maybe we've all had, and try to somehow sum up the experience and create an icon that would be about this experience. And I was kind of laughing at myself and all of us, because I think we all think we're kind of rebellious, even if we're leading sort of lives that are following the rules. And so here's this rebel, and he's totally his big pride in life is his necktie collection, and but the neckties are kind of boring. Actually,
I'd be pushing my hair actually if I was this person right here. That's great.
And so.
Okay, well, thanks. That's a good little background on the Rebel. And speaking of rebels, Rick Ponzio. I go back with you, street fairs, performances and that, but you have also moved into the visual art realm. How about a synopsis of what you're working on these days?
Well, I'm primarily a writer. I'm a playwright, core alumni at the Playwright Center, and I also write fiction, mostly folktales for children and general audiences, but symbiotically, I also do sculpture out of stone.
Yes.
I always have wanted to do that kind of work, and I've been doing it for a number of years. So I work on my writing, my stories, in a way, while I'm doing the art. And
Well, in
so
fact, I had the pleasure coming some weeks back over to the Playwright Center, and you're in the middle, maybe you're done by now, but you're in the middle of a story, a play with kids.
Yeah, it was a reading of a play called Wonderland Amusement Park, based on the old amusement park in South Minneapolis, and the action starts in the Seward neighborhood. Right. And it's an intergenerational play with varying ages.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the sculptural work. Do you want to grab that for us? That's a hefty piece right there.
Yeah, this is Indiana gray limestone, and this is probably less bizarre than some of my works. And it's really meant to go in a building, so you could literally put this in a building, and I think of these as guardians or protectors. You know, someone watching over the building, and I think that's really the background.
I know in the Asian
gargoyles.
tradition they have these threshold demons that they're right at the threshold, and they guard against the evil forces.
Yeah, that's the same kind of idea.
It's wonderful work. I have to say, I love the texture of this.
Yeah, normally it's quite often it's with leaf patterns and stuff. The green man. Yeah. Well, I was not content to just do that, because this is basically thousands of little fossils all, crunched together, and you can see some of the little locations where, if you look close at it. But so I thought I'd use that theme overall about the actual material itself.
Very nice work. As you're maybe setting that down, and this is you've already elicited great response here from folks in the studio. This is a book. Tell us about this and where it's available.
Well, I write books, I write plays, and I've been obsessed with the theme of books. So I've been doing, gargoyles, reading books, and just books. I just decided it'd be easier to carve a book out of stone than it would be to get one published. But this is a slate book, so it's like a chalkboard I teach. So I'm always writing on chalkboard. So I made a interactive book so that you can write on it and leave messages. And that one's big enough that you could leave a paragraph if you wrote small.
Yeah, if you wrote small. I think our crack crew actually wrote the words on here.
Yeah. I have books for sale like that, and marble and various other materials at the Minnesota Center for Book Arts, downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah, well, that's great. So again, multi-dimensional. You're still out and performing in front of people?
Oh yeah, doing mostly folktale shows for children, and I'll be in the Minneapolis and metro area libraries. In fact, Nokomis and Washburn next week. So
okay.
Check your
in the
schedule.
Month of June.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's great.
Good for every age. And
Well, now you were both nice enough to bring some slides also, so we can get another sense. Yeah. Nancy, you want to start us off with a glimpse at a few images of your artwork?
Yes. This is the betrayal. All of these slides are casein on watercolor paper, and this one is two-dimensional.
Now, casein is a...
It's a water-based paint that has milk in it, and it dries to extreme permanence. And rather than explain what each piece means, each one is an icon that sums up an experience that could be, they're my experiences, but they could be anyone's. So
what kind of universal
a universal thing. We've all been betrayed. This one is called Fear of Intimacy, which
I'm actually looking forward to that experience. I'm sorry, what's this next one you got?
This is called Fear of Intimacy, and it's based on my own fear of intimacy, but I think that many people have had this experience.
I don't know why, but I find that image extremely appealing, and I think I'll be calling my therapist right after the show. But
to find
I
out
just
why.
find the visual imagery very, very good there. Yeah. Of course, my therapist misled me once, so that's my betrayal. And what's this?
This is called The Homely Sister, and it's about women and beauty, and I mean that's where it started from, but it goes beyond that. It's about being alive in the world, or whatever you want it to be. So
powerful stuff.
Yeah, that one was in St. Paul paper about a week or so.
This particular image?
Yeah, that
yes,
was
the image was
back in what, in late May, I'm guessing?
No, it was what, the Friday, a week ago Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
All right.
A week ago Friday, back in the Express front page.
Congratulations. Now, Rick, you've got a few images as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Stick them right out here.
Now, this is in a somewhat different medium, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I just I thought I would show you first. This is in white marble, and it's it's a guardian, it's a watcher, it's a witness type piece, surrealist finger, and if you got, I've always seen like little eyes in the the lines on your knuckles, so I put an eye on that finger. And also the finger is really powerful. It's that universal thing. We remember things. We try to put our finger on things.
Yeah,
Aha!
that's right.
We point. We accuse. It's a very powerful.
Did you have to hire a model for that, or did you have a finger nearby?
I just looked at my own once in a while.
Okay,
and then I made it less twisted than mine. Made it
all artists do that. They elevate the human form.
I was going for elegance with that one actually. And this is the readers. It's a couple of. It's a large gargoyle reading a book to a little gargoyle. And of course, you don't get all the detail because it is 3D. But I'm thinking more in terms of libraries or personal or public or bookstores. In fact, is where I'm thinking about taking it around to.
And
they're disturbed. See, somebody's bothering them, so they're looking. Hey, what's that noise?
Hey, I'm reading here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this one here is a gargoyle who it's hard to tell whether he is either pulling himself up out of the book or lowering himself in, but in any event, his tongue is kind of stuck in the binding there.
Oh, a little ambiguity here.
Yeah.
But, what I like about your work here is that there are some dimensions to it. I mean, one, there's the physical, the tactile quality of it, which I like. Then you have a metaphor, and then there's a story. And yet, on another level, they're just sort of playful and light and fun in themselves. Yeah. But then you get into them, and there's another little deeper, more profound thing that you're saying.
Well, Phill, art makes people think. And it's been proven, this is coming out more and more, that if you don't educate children with the arts, if you don't introduce them, their brain won't develop properly. Yeah. They will not adapt as well. And I think we all need that sort of stimulation. Yeah. And that's what keeps us human and compassionate.
I agree. Nancy, I know that this month of June, the entire month, you're in a show at the Flanders Gallery downtown.
Yes, and here is the mailer for the show.
Quite now, this is your work? Of course, this is what you're showing us earlier.
I showed a slide of it, and the other artist is Melissa Stang, who's an incredible painter. It's a huge show. Both of us have a great deal of work. I have almost 40 pieces that I think. And
40 of yours?
Just of mine, and then Melissa's as well. And so it's quite a show. It will be there through July 5th.
Okay, so just over the 4th of July weekend. Flanders Contemporary Art is in
Wyman Building.
The Wyman Building,
First
Minneapolis
Avenue.
Warehouse District, downtown.
First
Great.
Avenue.
In fact, there's a phone number that I think we can show people for the Flanders Gallery if they want to find out exact hours.
Well, we could say what the hours are.
Yeah. Well, do you know those by heart?
Yes. In fact, they're right here.
Oh, how convenient, on a piece of paper.
They are Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5 p.m.
Okay, downtown. Speaking of each of you, now, maybe we didn't say this before, but you guys actually live under the same roof.
Yeah.
How is that with two creative people like yourself? I mean, do you stimulate each other? Do you inspire each other? Or does it sometimes get a little tricky? You're working on a project and it's like, Rick, could you stop hammering on the stone? I mean, is there tension with that kind of creativity under the same roof?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Actually,
because every time I see you guys, you seem like the happiest couple I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, we're very good actors.
Okay, that's right.
Well, extreme,
it's
it's another extreme emotion.
Actually, I have a stone studio that I sublet downtown in the warehouse. It's just too messy to do at home. You can't do that at home.
Okay.
But I do write at home. I think that we've been married for 11 years, and I think that because we both are insane artists who need to be obsessed with our work, there's that understanding that goes with it, I think that's the one thing that transcends any of the other kinds of, everyday problems that couples might have.
Now, I just got to check with you. Is it actually 11 years? Did he get that right?
11 years and how many days?
May 12th.
May 12th was our 11th anniversary.
All right, so 11 and counting. That's pretty good. Same way, though, I mean, do you ever get stimulated by something that he's doing and think, God, I could put that in, the concept or an image or something? Does it ever kind of go from one of you to the other?
It's more like we will compare notes at the end of the day. How did your day go? What were you working on? And we're working on the same images sometimes without having talked about it before.
Yeah,
it's very
kidding. Yeah,
really.
She's doing this thing with these ears. In fact, the betrayal with the ears. Yeah. And I was carving an ear to go into a wall.
Okay.
And then we later found out that someone was listening to our conversation. So it was interesting.
You mean like in your apartment or something? There was some snoop?
Well, a neighbor.
A neighbor.
Someone,
Okay. Yeah, I
someone
would
in the
define that
building.
as a snoop
yes,
if somebody's.
yes, it was
yeah.
How
eavesdropping.
bizarre! And so you both were kind of, thinking
we knew
about.
it, well, we didn't
Subconsciously, you know,
only
I think, yeah.
subconsciously. We didn't know consciously, but
Wow.
but we were also fascinated with eyes. I think because
Eyes.
we look
yeah.
at each other
We
all the
always
time.
see eyes
Yeah.
everywhere.
See eye to
Yes.
eye.
Yes,
Well,
we-
I mean, I think there is some common ground, but I think it has more to do with you're inspired if you know that somebody else is also inspired on something else. I mean, I think we do have kind of our own paths. We did have a show together this January, and the work, I think, goes really well together.
St. Paul Student Center.
Yeah,
It was a great show. I came
Paul
and
Whitney
saw it.
Larson.
Very nice. Yeah, congratulations. Folks, we're out of time. Nancy, I want to thank you. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Yes, thank you.
Flanders Gallery, the whole month of June, downtown Minneapolis.
Yes. Yeah.
Rick, a
Phill,
pleasure, as
really
always.
good, yeah.
Great. Now, Janet will be back to help me wrap up the June edition of Artifacts right after this look at some video taken of a Rick Ponzio performance from many years ago. Enjoy.
No.
Well, another fun show, and that Chris Osgood.
Oh,
I'm always learning things.
No.
Now, did he say that resources and counseling was started back
By-
in '78 by Elvis?
By Oh, no, no.
Elvis?
Oh, no.
That would have been about the time he disappeared.
well, that's true. And maybe, in fact, that was what caused his demise. I don't know.
I don't know. But you're always learning something like that. So.
Yeah, he did say elves. So
Oh,
it wasn't
elves.
Elvis, it was elves.
Elves, okay. Well, they're shorter than Elvis was.
That is one thing that is true.
Well, that was a fun show. We always like to give people a few tidbits about things that are coming up. The State and the Orpheum Theater, downtown Minneapolis, the folks that run their education department every few months do a historic theater tour. I've been on it a few months back. It's fascinating. If you want to find out about the history of the old theaters, the old buildings, check it out. The Historic Theater Tour, Saturday, June 14th. It starts at 9 a.m. You can call the Theater Live Education Department. That number is 373-5654. That's a fun one. So-
And speaking of fun, I think Brave New Workshop has really done themselves proud with
Yes.
the latest title for their latest gig they're doing in this summer, Beanie Baby Barbecue, or Something's Burning on the World Wide Webber.
Yeah, I love it. I
Gotta
cracked
see
up
it.
when I saw that.
Gotta see it.
Now, you know, there's new management over there because Dudley himself, Dudley the man, Dudley the person, he has moved on. And so there's a new crew over there, and it looks like they're doing good stuff. And
Yeah.
clever is good.
Clever
But
is good.
It's got to be funny, guys. It's got to be funny.
We'll be watching.
And one more thing. About 4 years ago, we had Scott Burton on the show. He's known as a juggler and a comedian. And he has just recently published a book basically about his cancer survival. And it's, I'm holding it right here, A Life in the Balance. And we congratulate Scott for doing the book and, of course, surviving the cancer. And really neat deal. So that's good.
Good book. Be sure to call, too, remember, if you want to win this beautiful cloisonne,
That's
I
right.
think it's really, I said this before, I think it really is cloisonne.
I wouldn't know.
Pin that says Minneapolis. It's really quite fun.
Yeah, it's a
nice
lovely
little pin.
thing.
And all you have to do is be the 11th caller to the City Cable 34 hotline, 673-2235.
That's right. No, 2234.
Gee, it's 2234.
See, that's how we weed out people who are calling for the free
That
things.
would be in 2234.
That's
Very
right.
easy to remember.
We'll have to save up for a teleprompter.
I think so.
Now, get your pens and paper out because we're going to have an events calendar. I just want to mention next month, some exciting guests lined up, including Ruth McKenzie, who's working on a very interesting show. Well, we'll talk about it then. Kalevala, Tales of the Salmon Woman. So she'll be on next month on
Sounds
Artifacts.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this month. I'm Janet Zahn.
And I'm Phill Lindsay. We'll see you next time on Artifacts.
I hold a smile for the first 20 miles to stop from crying.
miles away near Chatham County, where a branch of my family moved around 1800.
How you doing? How you doing?
So this is incredible. This is pretty great. Can we eat too?
Yeah. Eat some of this soul food. I live to eat.